All right, greetings and welcome to another episode of the Sovereign Lounge. We are your hosts, Round the World Man and Yamin Fauzi. Today, we have some interesting analysis that we'd love to bring you. What is the greatest city on earth? Now, Yamin has found a really interesting post from Alex Ricuso, I believe, if I'm saying his family name correctly. And, this is another one of these kind of timeless topics. What is the greatest city? And of course, this will change over time. But, I mean, let's get to it. What do you have on this topic? What has fired up your curiosity on this situation?
S- I mean, what is the greatest city on earth is such is such a like controversial take to make, because everybody's opinion is a bit subjective when it comes to this. Some people they prefer like New York type of city, where there's like all sorts of activity going on. Some people like to have a city where they have like different climates, different geographical features like mountains, sea, lakes, or in the countryside, like some sort of city. And I really tried to analyze the city with the experience that I had personally myself. I have traveled extensively in almost all continents except Australia. So, and also I have seen what are conventionally seen as the best cities on the world. And I'm gonna show you the post here from Alex that got my attention here. And I pinned it down to, you know, I said, what metrics? Strong contenders, in my personal opinion, are Dubai, Singapore, Miami, and Zurich. And why these four cities? I have been to all of these four cities personally myself. And I appreciated in every city certain aspects of it. Not all of it, but some aspects of it. So I'm gonna quickly explain to you why these four cities. So Dubai for convenience and as a global hub. So I keep telling this to people. I love Dubai for one reason. For one of the most reasons is that it's super convenient. Never ever did I have any problems when I landed in Dubai. The moment I step into an Emirates plane, to the second I step out of it, check into the hotel, leave the airport, it all just goes flawlessly. Every single thing. There is no issue in this city. Like, and if there is an issue, it gets fixed in the next hours or a couple of minutes sometimes even. So it's super convenient. You get everything in one city, and it's also very accessible um, to most places on the planet. In 6 hours, you're in any city in Europe, in any city, in most cities in Asia, or even Africa. So it's really a global hub, and that's what makes such a great place, you know. And then, coming up to the next city, which I have been multiple times as well, is Singapore. Uh, Singapore is a fantastic city. I absolutely love it. Every time I come there, you know, I would say it's the best or like the easiest city to enter in Southeast Asia because it's very efficient. Everything works very efficient there. It's also very convenient, similar to Dubai. You have the metro lines, you have, Grab, for example, which you can use. Grab is a Uber-like app in Southeast Asia. Um, Everything just works efficient. If you want to open a company, it's very efficient. Open a bank account, it's efficient. The moment you arrive there, everything is just efficient. And also the climate, I like tropical climates as well. Some people don't like it as much. Like for example, also with Dubai, in summer it's basically a sauna, an open, an outdoor sauna. So I understand why people don't like it. So this is why it scores a little bit less. And yeah, and then for my final two, Miami in the US. I have been to most major US cities except Chicago. I've been to New York, I've been to LA, San Francisco, Atlanta, Phoenix, etc. And what I really enjoyed in Miami is the high vibe energy, this lifestyle. You go out, you see people doing sports, You see all these flashy buildings, nice cars, etc. So there's this very specific vibe in Miami, you know. Uh, some people say it's degenerate, you know, that's another topic, but I kind of enjoyed the lifestyle aspect of it and also access to capital because it's an American city, you know, you can have strong banking networks, um, etc. And yeah, also when it comes to Miami, it's very attractive with flight paths to Latin America. You know, you can go to any Caribbean country from Miami. You can go to lots of different countries in Latin America. Panama is 3 hours away. You can go to Mexico City, Bogota, Medellin.
I was going to say Bahamas
Oh,
is a very short flight or boat ride,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Bahamas is
from Miami. That's a huge selling point there.
as well. Yeah, Bahamas is very close by. You have all these Caribbean cruises from Miami departing. So it's yeah, when it comes to lifestyle and exploring Latin America, Miami is the place to go. And last, but definitely not least, is, and it's a little bit biased because I'm from Zurich, is Zurich, Switzerland. And you know, a lot of my life, I liked Zurich, but I didn't think it was one of the greatest cities. But as I get older and see a lot of places around the world, I start to appreciate Zurich a lot more for two reasons. First of all, quality of life. Um, when you see all of these rankings, like Time Magazine or something else, Zurich is usually among the top three best cities on earth when it comes to quality of life. And I can attest to this. We have four seasons, you know, you have the lake, you have the mountains. There is so many things you can do in Zurich when it comes to enhancing your quality of life and health as well. And also very strong institutions. You know, Switzerland is you can barely peak Switzerland's institutions. It's just fantastic. You know, you have everything going from when it comes to benefits, employment, incorporation, um, support systems, incorporation, etc. Uh, Zurich is in that regard unbeaten, and also it's very central in Europe. You know, within a 2 hours or 3 hours flight, you're in London, you're in Istanbul, you're in Rome, in Madrid. So it's very accessible and also very efficient train network that comes along with it. So this is why, I say these are the greatest cities on earth regarding this specific metrics that I have come to appreciate and compare it to what I have also seen. Yeah.
Right, and I think your commentary on Zurich about how your perspective on it has changed over time is quite it's quite notable because I've seen the same kind of evolution in my own perspective of certain places. Because we're changing, we're growing, we're learning new things, gaining new experiences as people. But many of these cities are changing as well, and they're not they're evolving. Sometimes in a direction we like, sometimes in a direction we don't like. Some are becoming hyper dense. Some are becoming gentrified, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, many of these places appeal to you maybe in one phase of your life versus another phase. And I actually I was just reviewing some of this data on centimillionaires and millionaires, and I noticed that actually I should probably pull that up here. This I have this slide here. This is actually centimillionaires in the data report from Henley and Partners, and there's a city here that I actually have spent time in, quite a bit of time. It's called Scottsdale, and evidently, it's according to their data source, it got 64 people worth 100 or more million US dollars. I used to live relatively close to this place, but I also noticed in this data set that West Palm Beach, which is of course very close to Miami, these are both in South Florida. They're just there's West Palm Beach and technically Palm Beach. You have the Hubbard Museum there in West Palm Beach, from what I recall, or the Ralph Hubbard Norton Museum. and West Palm Beach. But these places are very close. Miami, West Palm Beach, basically the same area. Scottsdale, 64. Scottsdale didn't appeal to me when I was younger. I mean, it was a different town, but the kind of 2 season climate they have there in Arizona really changes things as you get older. And so it's one of those things where I definitely see the perspective of some of these things change over time, because I did not appreciate Scottsdale when I was like in my 20s, but now I could totally see the value in
I
being there.
can show our viewers the graph real quick here, if so people can see it also visually here. Um, so this is one of the reports from the world's fastest growing wealth hubs, and as you can see, Scottsdale is second behind just Shenzhen
Right,
in China. So
right,
there's a large increase, like 125% of millionaire growth in Scottsdale, Arizona. Yeah,
right, and it's and it's
I've
it's
I've also been
fascinating.
there, by the way. It's
Yeah, yeah,
like
it's fascinating because I lived just
8 years
a
ago.
few kilometers away from there for a number of years, and I kind of expected there to be some wealthy people, but now it's considered maybe number two in the world. And when was it that you were in Scottsdale most recently? When was that?
That was in 2017. I did a like a road trip in the West Coast from California to Arizona. And yeah, I just briefly went there. I didn't th think about much because to me it was just a suburb of Phoenix.
Right,
So, but still interesting to see that it is a growing wealth hub. So
right.
yeah, you always appreciate this sort of stuff more as you age. Yeah.
I was definitely. I can't remember if I was in Scottsdale in 2017, but I was definitely very close to Scottsdale around that same time. And yeah, it's interesting that some of these places that you either have a lot of experience in or spending a lot of time in, they change, and they become powerhouses in one measurement or another. And a lot of people maybe are priced out of Scottsdale now because there is such a lot of there's a lot of wealth there. But I know that there was a lot of housing development going on, new houses, some in some cases very luxurious housing that was happening in years past. But as far as the greatest city on earth, yes, it's a challenging topic. What about I noticed that in your list there, I mean, you had Zurich, and I would say Zurich would kind of more fit into the category of kind of medium or small sized town compared to say like that Miami through Palm Beach area. Singapore is a city state. I mean, it's its own country, and Dubai is of course almost a form of a country as the Emirate of Dubai within the Federation of the United Arab Emirates. Zurich is also in a federation of this, the Swiss Federation, but Zurich's pretty small population compared to
Confederacy.
these. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's pretty small population. Um, how do you feel about small cities in medium-sized cities? Because I'm generally a fan, and so what's your opinion on this now?
Now that's a good question to ask, because Zurich is a very unique case. Because here in Switzerland, what we usually say is that Zurich, wants to brand itself as a global city, but wants to remain a village. And
Right,
you will notice this sentiment because, there are not many skyscrapers, for example, in Zurich. The highest one is 127 meters. My apartment in Kuala Lumpur was almost the same height. So
right, right,
it's a rather small city. Definitely, I mean, if you compare it to other similar sized, it's definitely better connected. I give you the example of Bristol in the UK. Bristol is also around 400,000 inhabitants in the city proper,
right,
similar to Zurich, which is also about 450,000. But the airport in Bristol, it doesn't have that many connectivities. The train station is not as connected. There's no trams. Um, you know, uh, Even though it's like the similar size. And I think that's something that makes the like a city in that range very interesting if it has this connectivity to the world or to the region, I would say. So this is why Zurich hits such a great sweet spot,
Right.
because it's not too large, like a huge metropolitan area. I give you a honorable mention here of Kuala Lumpur because it's for me, it's one of my favorite cities, but I can understand why it's not for the majority of people. But Kuala Lumpur is big. It's gigantic. It has the metro region is as big as almost the entire population of Switzerland. But yeah, and Zurich in that contrast is much smaller, and so it's definitely one of the sweet spot that Zurich nails. I'm not sure. I can't think of a similar city, to be honest, that hits the sweet spot like Zurich. Maybe you have an example.
Well, I wanted to ask you about your opinion on the rail connectivity versus the airport and jet connectivity in Zurich, because this is another big thing in Europe that in the continent of Europe, and I want to be specific. When most people are talking about Europe, they refer to the European Union. I'm generally referring to the continent itself, which kind of embodies more than the European Union in a lot of cases, and rail connectivity, I feel, is very undervalued in the present day because, again, I am trying to be more of that sovereign man. This is why we have, started bringing everyone here, all of our valued viewers, to Sovereign Lounge. And I find that, a lot of this border guards and stuff like that at these airports are very militarized. They're sometimes hostile, asking a lot of questions. And it seems like it's just a lower stress experience dealing with rail travel, and I've personally had some great first class travel experiences on rail lines throughout the continent of Europe, and I find them, very safe. Even the first class stuff, it can get a little bit pricier, but you don't see these militarized checkpoints and bring out your computer, show me your phone or whatever it is, where's your boarding pass. It's just a much stressier experience, and the thing that really drives it to the tipping point for me is that a lot of rail connectivity is in the city center, and so I'm not stuck with some 40-minute taxi ride, 30-minute Uber ride, trying to get from some perimeter airport somewhere to a business conference or an important meeting, or to maybe just to a nice steakhouse in the city center of one of these cities in Europe. And that's a big factor for me. It's just like lower stress, less military checkpoints, and when I get off the train, again, a lot of times you can get a great first class seat. Maybe it's just you and one other person in a cabin, or maybe you have the whole cabin to yourself. In some situations, you're already in the city center, just steps away, or maybe a 5-minute taxi ride from where you need to be. So that's what I love. But what do you see in Zurich when it comes to train versus airport connectivity that makes it stand out to you?
When it comes to train, is well, the whole of Switzerland is connected by rail. You can get to Basel to 1 hour, which is on the border of France and Germany. You can go to the capital within 1 hour, to Bern. In about 3 hours, you're in Geneva, the far west end of Switzerland, and also down south in 3 hours, you're at the border of Italy already. And if you expand it, you can go to Frankfurt, to Germany, to Paris with the TGV, which also stops in Zurich. Um, to any city basically. So if you have an overnight thing going on, it's much less stressful, you know. But then again, I mean, air travel within the Schengen zone is very easy because you don't have like border checks. You can just go in, check your baggage, or if you don't have checked luggage, as I most of the time don't have, you can just go through security very fast. And that's it, you know. The thing about also that stands out with Zurich is they have like really good North American connections. So you can go to Philadelphia, for example, to DC, New York, Miami, direct flights, LA, San Francisco, Chicago. So many direct flights to North America, also to Far East, like such as Hong Kong, Beijing, Singapore. Um, so this is what stands out to me for Zurich, for being such a quote unquote small city, that I have not found in any other similar sized cities
What
thus
about
far.
connections to Caribbean destinations? I believe Swiss Air used to have some of those, maybe some other carriers as well. Is that still a thing in the present day?
Yeah, I mean, mostly just holiday destinations like Punta Cana. There's Edelweiss Air that usually have direct flights. Yeah, there is also some flight with Swiss to Sao Paulo, and which then also adds a second leg to Buenos Aires, which I found very interesting. I have never used this route before, but it exists there.
Right.
But Latin America is one of Switzerland's weakness, to be honest. There's no flights to, for example, to Panama, to Mexico,
I think they used to do
to maybe.
Habana though. I think they used to do Havana, but I don't know if they're still doing
Yes,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I am not sure, to be honest. Yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's like on Latin America, it's kind of weak, to be honest. Um, but yeah, we
Yeah,
will see.
they
Maybe
get a
they'll
lot of that
they'll change.
business travel between North America and destinations in Europe, and I think that's the big thing. Zurich is trying to, or is one of those kind of like hub destinations when it comes to the air travel. And because you see some of these, even these Canadian companies that are registered in various places in Switzerland, and so I think that's kind of why there's probably this focus on North America, is to get some of that business travel to some of these, like you mentioned, Philadelphia or San Francisco, for example. Maybe even a Toronto sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the case.
Absolutely. Well, this has been another fantastic episode of the Sovereign Lounge. Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate all your insights and analysis. Thank you again for your time here. And let's sign off for now. Thanks again, Yamin.
Thanks, and thanks for watching.